Hello friends, welcome to the channel Physics by IITians. Thank you for the 1K subscriber. Please do support the channel so that we can make many more videos for your preparation of NET, GATE, IIT JAM and BAR, TIFR like examinations. So friends, I start the lecture of atomic physics. I have almost completed optics lecture. The one topic I skip, that is diffraction. If you because I just skip it because it is not much more important for the NET examination. So I think that we should proceed and we can go to the another lecture series, that is atomic physics. If you want, then I will obviously definitely make a video regarding diffraction. Okay, so if demand says, then I will definitely make it. So let's start. So before starting any lecture, we should think about the history. So the atomic physics, there is a very brief history of atomic physics. That is the before 500 BC. Okay, the Greek philosophers like Democritus, Aristotle, they thought that atoms. What is atoms? What is matter? What matter is consistent of? So the Democritus thought that according to him, the matter is made of discrete particles, whereas Aristotle thought that the matter is made of continuous particles, or matter is continuous. Then around 662, the kinetic theory of gases, Boyle's law, developed. And these theories are being developed by Clausius, Maxwell, Boltzmann. Okay. So they gave you the kinetic theory of gases like atoms, like molecules, that is particles are consisting of molecules, they are consisting as spheres, independent spheres. So they can collide, and you all know the kinetic theory of gases. And then Dalton's come into play and he gave some of his hypotheses. Like the atom is the smallest particle in the of a matter, and it is cannot be further divisible. Then Gay-Lussac Avogadro came to play, and Avogadro gave his famous Avogadro number. Okay. Then Faraday did an experiment. His experiment of electrolysis he did, and he found out that the electric charges inside the electrolytes. So some masses of the electrolytes are giving the charges or producing the current. So they at that time they didn't know that the masses are the charges. The charges are coming from electrons. Basically, they are saying the masses are giving us the current. So then after Faraday, Balmer at 1885, he saw the hydrogen spectrum, discrete hydrogen lines, hydrogen spectrum, and the name of that line is Balmer series of hydrogen, and he named it like H alpha, H beta, H gamma, H delta, like this. And the lines, that is the wavelength of the lines, are continuously decreasing and systematically in decreasing order. So how to explain this Balmer series? Then Thomson come to play, and he gave us the explanation that the atoms model, that is palm pudding model. Like suppose this is the positive charge and this is distributed around the whole atom, and electrons are within the positive charges. Suppose this is the whole atom, which is the positive charge is distributed, and the negative electrons are in that positive charges. But his theory was a problem, and he told that these electrons that are vibrating, and due to these vibrations of the electrons, they are giving you the electromagnetic waves in form of lines, different spectral lines or different wavelengths. But his assumption was that these electrons are oscillating. Now they are vibrating. So the vibration frequencies are new. Suppose the vibration frequency is new, then other frequencies, if this is the fundamental frequency, we should get a new line, most intense line with the new, and higher harmonics like 2 nu, 3 nu. So this should be like equal interval lines. We should get equally spaced lines, but the experimental data tells you that we don't get equally spaced lines, rather we get uh, shorter wavelengths around the from H alpha to H infinite. So this model is unable to explain the hydrogen lines or Balmer series of hydrogen. Then Rutherford comes to play, and he somehow managed to imagine that he did a beautiful experiment, that is alpha with the alpha particles, that is his famous gold experiment, gold foil. And he put his model that electron are this certain orbits around the nucleus, and nucleus in a fixed position around the center, and around the nucleus there are electrons and they are moving that orbits, like planets are moving around the sun, so the electrons are moving around the nucleus. But he has a problem with his theory, that he gave these orbits are random. I mean, the orbits, he hasn't defined the orbits, the nature of the orbits. But classically, whenever the charge is rotating, there should be the acceleration or deceleration of the charges. And we all know from classical electrodynamics, whenever the charged particle is accelerating or decelerating, it will radiate electromagnetic wave. Now it is continuously radiating electromagnetic wave, so it will continuously lose energy. So it will continuously lose energy, so it will jump to the nucleus. So the stability will be of the nucleus is uncertain. So this cannot imply us the atomic model which we need at that time, because it doesn't explain the stability of the atom. Then Bohr, the Niels Bohr, he was the student of Rutherford. He was a PhD student of Rutherford. He did the concept of Rutherford models like the nucleus and the electrons. The electrons are revolving around the nucleus, but he made another assumption that was given by Planck, like in 1900 or 1901, that is for his black body direction, that is light energy is discrete. This is the Planck's quanta, and rather Einstein also put this postulate in the photoelectric theory, and he got Nobel Prize. Now Bohr took this idea from Planck's and from Rutherford, and he gave that L, that is the orbital angular momentum of the electron should be mvr is not continuous, it should be decreased, and it will be n into h by 2 pi. This is the quantization. Okay, the quantization idea with the Rutherford's theory, he gave us a new model which is Bohr model, but which is the quantum theory of atoms has come to play. So now if we find out the Bohr model, we will get like the equation, that is, suppose this is the nucleus and this is the electron. Electron is revolving around the nucleus, so there will be a Coulomb attraction between the nucleus and the electron, as well as the electron is revolving, so there will be a centripetal force. That's why the electron is moving. Now whenever the electron is within this stationary orbits, means the electron will not emit or absorb, will not lose any energy whenever it is the stable within the stable orbits, that will obey the quantization rules. Okay, so it can definitely tell us the stability of the atoms, because electrons at these orbits will not lose any energy. Now if we write out that the Coulombic attraction is equals to the centripetal force, that is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught z into E, Ze into E by r square equals to mv square by r, we can get that r will be equals to, r is the radius of the orbit, it should be n square h square epsilon naught by pi m z square, and v, that is the velocity of the electron at that orbit, is z square by 2 n h epsilon naught, and the total energy, that is kinetic energy plus potential energy. Potential energy is certainly the Coulombic attraction term, and the kinetic energy is half mv square. You find put the value v there, you get that the energy, total energy is minus of mz square to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h square into 1 by n square. The negative signs tells you this is the bound orbit. Okay, the bound energy. Now you have to remember these formulas, that r is proportional to n square, r is proportional to 1 by z, 1 by m, or else you just remember the whole formulas. Okay, from here we can certainly have that energy En is proportional to 1 by n square. This earlier in 1885 Balmer gave us an empirical relationship that the wavelength, or this is the wave number, that is 1 by lambda or c by lambda rather, the wave number is equals to some constant. That time this is not RH, that 1 by lambda, that is what wave number, and that time Balmer gave us that some constant into 1 by n square, n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. This was an empirical relationship. He gave it from the observations, but at that time he didn't find out how to prove the relationship. From this Bohr's theory, the empirical relationship given by Balmer has been established. So the wave number, that is proportion, is RH into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. Now if we write it term value Tn, if we express it, the Tn will be, term value will be minus En by h into c, that will be mz square to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught h cube into c 1 by n square. This is the Rydberg constant or R infinite. So Tn, the term value, we write it R infinite z square by n square. Now we will find out that if here in this case we have assumed that the nucleus is infinitely heavy and it is at rest, and electron is only moving. But in the real case, nucleus is not infinitely heavy, so there will be rotation or movement of the electron as well as the nucleus. So we will correct the values for the energy due to the finite masses of both the nucleus and the electrons, and we will solve the previous year questions. Earlier we have discussed that according to Bohr model, that the nucleus is infinitely large and it is almost rest, and it is the electron which is revolving around the nucleus. But we all know that nucleus is not infinite. Okay, so it has some finite mass. So from the consideration or correction for the finite mass of the nucleus, so we can assume that the nucleus is also revolving as well as the electron is revolving. So both are revolving with a common axis. So suppose this is the axis, this is the center of mass, so axis is passing through this. This is the C, and with an angular velocity, that is omega. So the distance between the nucleus and the electron is r, and from the axis the distance of the electron is x and the nucleus is r minus x. So the system is in equilibrium, so the moments of m and small m and capital M about C will be equal, so that m into x is equals to m into r minus x. So x equals to mr by small m plus capital M, and rx minus x equals to mr by small m plus capital M. How did you find, then you find out L, that is L equals to mx square omega plus m into r minus x whole square omega. You put the values for x and r minus x and you get L equals to m capital M divided by m plus capital M into r square omega. So we take this quantity as reduced mass and we denote it that mu equals to small m capital M by small m plus capital M. So L will become L equals to mu into r square omega. So our Bohr theory of quantization will be Bohr's quanta will be modified, and in place of m we will write it mu into Vr equals to nh by 2 pi. So the formula for the energy, mu into Vr equals to nh by 2 pi. En will be minus mu by, earlier wherever there was m, it will be replaced by mu. So En will be minus mu by 8 z square e to the power 4 by epsilon naught square h square into 1 by n square. These dependencies are very much important. So please remember the whole formula, or remember at least the dependency of En with mu, dependency of En with z square, dependency of En with minus 1 by n square. Okay. R similarly the R infinite, this is the m into e to the power 4. Earlier it was the Rydberg constant. When the R infinite means the nucleus is heavy, so that it is R infinite, but this time it will be R into capital M, and the m will be replaced by mu, and it will become mu into 2. This is Rm. Okay, sorry for the speaking mistake. Mu e to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square h cube into c. So this mu, that is in earlier I write it that small m capital M by small m plus capital M. So you can write it like this also, that is small m divided by 1 plus m by capital M. Okay. So whenever if you want to write the Rydberg constant, then you can write it like Rm equals to R infinite divided by 1 plus small m by capital M. So if hydrogen, for the hydrogen atom, R is equals to R infinite by 1 plus m by mh, that is mass of the proton m by mh. Now m by mh is for hydrogen is 1 by 1837, and the RH will be 10968787 inverse. Okay. For helium, this mass of hydrogen will be replaced with mass of helium. For deuteron, Rydberg constant Rd will be R infinite divided by 1 plus small m divided by m of d, where mass of helium is 4 into mass of hydrogen, mass of deuteron is 2 into mass of hydrogen. So if you are to in a question that how the Rydberg constant will be changed in case of helium, in case of deuteron, you find out from these formulas. Okay. So for hydrogen, this is the ratio, that m by mh, that 1 by 1836. Now the formula for the wave number is 1 by lambda, that is Newborn, equals to Rm z square, 1 by nf square minus 1 by ni square. So this Rm will be R infinite divided by 1 plus small m by capital M. So for Z, whenever Z equals to 1, that is for hydrogen. If helium plus, then Z equals to 2. If lithium 2 plus, that is Z equals to 3. So you can find out these are the all hydrogen-like atoms, like this helium plus, lithium 2 plus plus. Okay. So now we can discuss some previous questions related to this topic. Discuss the theory. The question from NET 2011. That the question is, given the ground state energy of the hydrogen atom is minus 13.6 electron volt, the ground state energy of positronium, which is a bound state of electron and a positron, is how much? So the ground state energy for hydrogen has been given. The ground state energy of the positronium you have to calculate, and it is also given that the bound state of electron plus positron. So electron plus positron, positron plus electron, E plus is positron, E minus is electron, will give you a positronium. Now we will have to consider here the finite mass of the nucleus, because both has the same mass, both have the same mass. So we have to find out that mu, that is here I have calculated that if the reduced mass or mu, or I have written here as Rm, should be m into m divided by m plus m, where I have denoted both the masses for positron as well as electron is m, small m. So it become half into m. So where m is the mass of electron or mass of positron, both are same. So earlier in this case, this is minus 13.6 electron volt. Now it will be minus 13.6 eV divided by 2, because in case of m, here it will be m by 2, or in case of hydrogen we take only the mass of the electron, but in case of positron we have to take the reduced mass, that is m by 2. So the option is, or answer is minus 6.8 electron volt. Next, this is a very simple question and it is of 5 marks or 3 marks, I don't remember, but it is a very simple question. So from atomics you can easily find out these answers. Okay, so please do study atomic physics. The next question is, a muon, that is mu minus, from cosmic rays is trapped by a proton to form a hydrogen-like atom. Given that a muon is approximately 200 times heavier than an electron, the longest wavelength of the spectral line is of such an atom will be. Okay, so you have given that the mass of muon is greater than 200 times of mass of electron. What is the longest wavelength? So longest wavelength means the lowest energy difference. Okay, suppose this is the ground state energy, this is the E1, it will be E2, it will be E3. Okay, so the shortest energy level is, the lowest energy level is ground and E1. This is the lowest difference. So it will give you hc by lambda, that will be the longest wavelength. So I have to find it out, the energy levels for E0, E1, or if I can write it as E1, E2, so E1 and E2. So if you find out E1, E2 and you then subtract the two levels and then you find out delta equals to hc by lambda and you will find out the lambda. So how do you find out E, energy level? First we have to find out the reduced mass for this system, that is mu will be m mu minus divided by m mu minus plus m mu minus, where I write the mass of the muon as m mu minus. So it will be 180 into mass of Me. Okay, you calculate it and you get that energy will be 180 into E1 divided by n square, where E1 is minus 13.6 electron volt, which is for the hydrogen case, and here I put the value of the reduced mass. So it becomes like this. Now n will denote the number of energy levels, that is n is 1, that is ground state, n is 2, that is the excited state, first excited state, n is 3, that is second excited state, or so you have to write it. So n equals to 1 give you E1 prime will be 180 into E1, because this is 1, so it will be 180 into E1. N is 2, E2 prime, it will be 180 into E1 divided by 2 square, that is 180 by 4 into E1, that will be 45 E1. So we need only the two levels, that is lowest and first excited, or ground and the first excited. And we also know the value of U1, that is minus 13.6 electron volt. So you put the values, you find out the difference between the two levels, you get 135 E1, and you put the value of U1 as 13.6, you get it will be 1836 electron volt. So this is our delta E. So delta equals to hc by lambda. So what is the longest wavelength? It is the lambda, you have to find it out. So you write delta E, hc by delta E, which will give you the answer 6.67 angstrom. So friends, here you have to find out first the reduced mass of the system, then you find out the energy levels, you find out the energy levels for the ground state, first excited state, you take the difference between the two levels and you find out the wavelength. And this is the longest wavelength that is coming out from the system. So the questions from this chapter has been discussed. Please practice other questions also, and I will briefly discuss about the atomic physics like Zeeman effect and also the vibrational energy, rotational energy. So I will discuss all the spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy. So hopefully we will enjoy the lecture. Thank you.